L'chaim, l'chaim. We're celebrating Kovches Sivan, 80 years since the Rebbe arrived on the shores of America. And we know what a revolution took place. Ve'im bigvurois shmoinim shana. David HaMelech tells us in Tehillim, if you reach the age of 80, there needs to be an element of gevurois, of super injection of new energy and new power. What does that mean to us? 80 years after the Rebbe reached those shores and started an entire revolution in Hafotzas Hayadus and Hafotzas Hamayonas Chutza. L'chaim. One of the Nekudas which the Rebbe speaks in the Sichas is that America is in the Chatzi Kadur HaTachton, in the lower hemisphere, in a place that Matan Torah didn't take place. Matan Torah took place in Har Sinai. It didn't take place in America. But Davka from there, Davka from America, from 770, from Ufaratzda, was the eruption of a major world embracing effort to get the Jewish world ready for Mashiach, ready for Geula through Hafotzas Hayadus, spreading Yiddishkeit, and especially Hafotzas Hamayonas Chutza. How did the Rebbe do that? As soon as he came, we know the story that the Frierdiker Rebbe appointed the Rebbe the head of 3 institutions. Number 1, Machane Yisrael, a social institution for Jews. Number 2, Merkaz Linyonei Chinuch, a center for education, to educate the young, the old. And number 3, Kahos, a printing house that would print Chassidus and disseminate it through the entire world. What's the message to us? Each one of us is an entire world. Each one of us has a lower hemisphere, perhaps an area that Matan Torah didn't reach that area yet. What is Matan Torah? Matan Torah is that fusion of Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai, the Gilui, the revelation Milamayla, but also Umoisha Allah, the idea of Avodah B'Koyach Atzmai, of working with oneself. A Chassid needs to think, Aliba Denafshe, in his own heart, that there are areas that are in that lower hemisphere that Matan Torah didn't reach, that the instructions and direction and inspiration of Torah did not reach. Let us, on this 80th year, reach out to those areas. And davka from those areas will come a new lease of energy. In the 3 areas. Number 1, Machane Yisrael. In the social area, each one of us, if we look inside, needs to improve socially in our Bein Adam Lachaverei, in how we treat ourselves, our spouses, our families, our communities, those who we've never seen beforehand. And then, Merkaz Linyoni Chinuch. There are areas in Chinuch, our own Chinuch, the Chinuch of our families, and that of the community, that needs improvement, a new release and injection of energy, a gvuros of 8 years of Kof Ches, of Koyach Sivan, the Koyach of the month of Matan Torah. And finally, Kahos, learning Chassidus, learning as the Rebbe instructed by the Kinus HaShluchim of Tafshin Nun Beis, to learn Torah Oyer and Likutei Torah weekly, to learn the Sichas and Ma'amorim of the Rebbe, Tutals. Today there's a Ribu in Yonim of learning programs. It's amazing. And especially learning the Sichas of Tafshin Nun Aleph, and Tafshin Nun Beis, of being up to date with the current Heroes and Sichas of the Rebbe that are literally talking to the period in which we are in at the moment. And then, if we give ourselves in that lower hemisphere, in that hemisphere where those areas where Matan Torah perhaps didn't yet reach yet, if we give ourselves completely over, übergeben sich mit aller Retzonos, as it says in Hayom Yom, to give ourselves over with all we have, with all you've got, then we can precipitate this major change. I heard from my Shver, Baruch Shalom Kahanu from New Haven, a beautiful story which he heard from his father, Reb Leibel Kahan Oliver Shalom. It's a story, a marshal, about a king who had a daughter, a princess, and he wanted to marry her off to somebody. So he'd said he's going to make a contest, and whoever would win the contest would get the hand of the princess. And he said that everybody has a year to go and devise some new invention with which he would present the king, and whoever would win the contest would get the hand of the daughter in marriage. So 3 eligible young men came along, and he said, go away for a year, see what you can do. The 3 of them decided that they're going to meet up 6 months into the year to see where each one is heading. And at this midway meeting, one of them said, first one said, I've came up with an amazing invention. It's a mirror. And in this mirror, you can look into the mirror and you can see far, far away everything that's happening over there. The second one said, I've also come up with an amazing invention. I have a wagon and a horse, and this horse and wagon, it can go anywhere you want at supersonic speed. The third one said, I've also come up with an invention. I found an apple that can cure any illness in the entire world. Anyway, they were discussing each one about their inventions, and finally, one of them said to the guy with the mirror, hey, you know what? Why don't you look into the mirror and see what's happening in the palace? And so, he looks into the mirror, and Gewalt, he sees that the king is unwell. So desperately unwell, he's in danger of his life. So the guy with the carriage says, come, let's come in my carriage, and we will go to the king. They all 3 of them get in the carriage, and in a minute, they're in the palace. And the guy with the apple runs to the king, and he says, King, here, take the apple, eat the apple, and it will cure you. And the king eats the apple, and he had a miraculous recovery. And now the king has to decide to which one of them is he going to give the hand of the princess. After all, surely without the guy who invented the mirror, they wouldn't have even known about the situation. But had it not been for the one with the wagon and the miraculous wagon and horse, they would have never arrived in time. But there again, had it not been for the one with the apple, the king wouldn't have had a refuah shalema. So which one do you think should the king give his princess hand in marriage? The answer is the king gave it to the man who gave the apple. Why? Because the mirror, it was very important. It was used to see what was happening in a far country, but, it's there again. The man still has the mirror and he can use it again. The guy who gave the horse and wagon, also, it was tremendous. They wouldn't have got there without that. But at the end of the day, it still remains by him and he can use it again. The guy who gave the apple, he gave away everything he's got. The apple doesn't exist anymore. He gave everything away to the king. So the king said, the one who gives everything away to the king, that's the one that I'm going to give my daughter to. There was a story which I heard in the name of Rabbi Leibel Grona, that he was once in the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe had many, many people to answer, and the Rebbe picked out one letter which he answered of a certain chassid. And Rabbi Grona was astonished as to why that letter of all the so many letters. And so he asked the Rebbe why. And the Rebbe said to him the words, Val is in ganzen meiner, because he is completely mine. L'chaim, let us hope on this koyach Sivan, this empowering day, that we reach inwards to those areas that perhaps are in the lower hemisphere, the Matan Torah didn't reach to, in ourselves, and let us be infused with a new lease ve'im begvura shmein shana of koyach and energy to take the mayon, to take that wellspring of chassidus and of Yiddishkeit, and to put it further chutza until lahachin atzmoi, we prepare ourselves, mekoimoi, our place, iroi, our town, veskola oilam kula, in the entire world, lekabel pnei Mashiach tzidkenu bekarev mamash, l'chaim livracha.